Welcome to a special series of This Week in Canton City Schools, where we will focus on the mental health and wellness of our kids and families. I'm Robin Matalich, your host today. The Canton City School District continues to partner with the Child and Adolescent Behavioral Health Agency. This agency provides a myriad of resources to the Stark County community and, most importantly, to our students within CCSD. Each month, we will feature resources and strategies to help the mental well-being of our young people. On this episode, we are talking with Andrew Burwell, Trauma-Informed Day Treatment School Principal and Program Manager, and Mike Labriola, Trauma-Informed Day Treatment School Superintendent. Sit tight, all of that starts right now. As we continue to look for ways to balance the demands of day-to-day life and the obstacles we can face, our mental health and wellness continues to be at the forefront of the needs of our young people. This continued series of shows with the Child and Adolescent Behavioral Health Agency will provide all kinds of different ways to address the needs of our youth in regards to mental health and wellness. Joining us today, again, Andrew Burwell, Principal, and Mike Labriola, Superintendent of the Trauma-Informed Day Treatment School. Andrew and Mike, welcome back to the studio. As with all of our guests, we like to refresh the viewers' memories, a little bit about your background, where you went to high school, college, where you grew up, and some of the roles you've had at CNA and how you ended up there. So, Andrew, we're going to start with you.
All right. I went to Glen Oak High School, and when I wanted to start college, I decided I really want to pursue education because I've just always been obsessed with school. The entire concept of just a whole group of people coming together and just learning as a group. Mm-hmm. So I went to Kent State Stark, got my undergraduate degree for middle childhood education. I then got a text from a friend after I graduated that CNA has a teaching position open for middle childhood, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I applied, and initially I was told, oh, it's a science teacher position, and then I learned it was so much more. It was a science, math, English, social studies, so it truly was a big challenge, but it's been fun ever since. It's been amazing.
So you did a little bit of teaching everything when you walked in the door?
Yeah. When we first came in, they said you're to be in charge of multiple grade bands, multiple subjects, and at first I was like, whoa, this kind of seems like a lot. But thanks to Dan Metzger, who was the previous program manager, he showed me the ropes of every single thing, how to make a lesson plan, how to individualize it to every single kid. It was perfect.
Wow, that's very impressive because most people are specialized in one area, and you walk in and you're doing every area. Mm-hmm. So, wow, kudos to you. That's amazing. So, Andrew, sorry, we had Andrew. Mike, Mike, can we hear a little bit about you, your background?
Sure. Actually, I'm a Canton City elementary product from Fairmont Schools way back.
Wow.
I then went to St. Thomas Aquinas High School. Okay. After graduation, attended Bowling Green State University for an educational degree. Moved on also with administrative work at Akron University and Ashland University.
Oh, okay. You've had a lot of background in education and all sorts of things, so that's fantastic. So I'm going to stay with you, Mike. Can you give our viewers a little history of the day treatment school and explain to our viewers the uniqueness of the school and why the school actually exists?
In 1980, the program started in Canton City Schools. They provided our behavior interventionists and provided teachers. We provided the therapists through CNA. Around 2008, management decided to take on the program itself and actually house them in a school and provide our own BIs, our own staff of therapists and teachers as well. The major goal is to work with students, not giving them consequences, but developing self-discipline, using techniques of restraint, timeout, deep breathing skills. All of that is included in the therapy portion of the program so that students can begin rethinking how they're reacting to some of the frustrations they face.
I see. So in addition to actually being educated, they are going through a therapy throughout the day as well. It's all rolled into one,
It's
so
all
to
rolled
speak?
into one. During the school day, they'll be having their academics, making sure that the needs of their school district are met academically, and then also the behavioral pieces in there, and the therapy piece in terms of the trauma.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So as the superintendent, can you explain to our viewers what your duties might entail? And is it along the same lines as the superintendent of a traditional school, such as Mr. Talbert?
It's similar in some ways, but it is definitely different. When I was at Plain Local and we had problems with students, we oftentimes sent them off to Passages or to CNA's day treatment program. Being on this side of the fence, I see that public schools really do not have the facilities and makeup to handle some of these deep trauma issues that these kids are facing, whether it be from home, deaths in a family. It can be a variety of things. So my major job is to kind of make sure that we're following the curriculum for the academic piece, working with teachers to make sure that their evaluations are appropriate. Working side by side, we have Sally Sutterfield, who's a program manager in terms of developing the program. We have the program manager principal position with Andrew, but we're a team of three that really tries to focus on what's best for the child and how can we improve situations for those children.
Right, and I would imagine since most of these students come from maybe the same type of a background, you're not dealing with, well, we've got this group of kids with this group of kids with this, and this group of trying
all
to
have individual needs.
Right.
Individual needs.
So it's nice that they have the resources there that will help them
Absolutely.
succeed academically. So now, as principal, let our viewers know some of your specific duties throughout the day and the school year.
So luckily, last year I was doing a program through Mount Union to get my principal's licensure, and a very kind gentleman was very nice and allowed me to do my internship with him. So I kind of learned the ropes from him last year. And then this year, I accepted the position. It'll be my first year now as the program manager.
Okay.
So going through the program, I will be in charge of overseeing things clinical, overseeing the educational aspects of things. My job is to make sure that everything's flowing the way that's supposed to be flowing. We want to make sure every kid gets what they need to be successful. The staff have the resources they need to teach the students. Therapists have access to any of the tools they need for the therapy they do throughout the day. So it's a bit of a mix of all things.
Right. You wear a lot of different hats throughout the day, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
A lot, being principal and program manager. So that being said, how does one become a student in your program? Do you take only Stark County students who have suffered severe trauma that being in a traditional school setting is too much for the district to handle, or do you take kids from all over northeastern Ohio?
So we do take kids from Stark County, and we do have one or two kids every once in a while who may live in an area that does not have the facilities that they need for that child.
Right.
And so we do have some kids come over, and they have quite a long bus ride to get here, but it is beneficial for the kid to come here.
Okay, and I understand that you can have a maximum of 32 students in the entire school. Can you tell the viewers how these classrooms are organized, how many adult personnel might be in there, and the average stay for a student?
Sure. So each room, there is a teacher, a therapist, and a behavioral interventionist. The teacher is in charge of the education, the therapist is in charge of course, the therapy, and then the behavioral interventionist is kind of there to support in any way they can, whether it is taking the kid out of the room for just a break, going to the restroom. Sometimes our kids get dysregulated, and so they need to go out, and it could be something simple as just playing a round of Uno, or it could be going into the hallway and playing a little bit of basketball, or going down to the gym just to get some stress out. So the 4 rooms are kind of divided by grade level. So we have a high school room, then we have a middle school room, elementary, and then younger classroom as well. And the length of time is going to depend on the kid, because we've had kids who come in for maybe 6 to 8 months, whereas other kids need upwards of maybe 2 or 3 years. It's completely dependent on the kid and what they're going through.
Are you typically at capacity with 32 students in a classroom?
Not typically. We usually have 1 or 2 rooms that get to 7 or 8 kids, and then other classrooms, they kind of have maybe 5 or 6. So we rarely ever hit the actual 32 mark.
Right, so you've got quite a few adults in there with the
yeah.
number of kids, so I'm sure that actually is very helpful. So I understand you were a teacher in the day treatment program before moving to the principal's role. this year. How challenging is it for a teacher to teach multiple grade levels and keeping all of the kids on track with their studies?
Yeah, so I kind of did the same thing that Dan Metzger did for me. I went ahead and I showed any of the new teachers that were coming in the way that I did things. And so I have a Google Drive set up, and I go through and I plan out week by week what each kid is going to learn by grade level. So I will have thousands and thousands of folders, and they just go by each different month, and then it goes into the week, and then it goes into the day, and then it has all of the different resources, because some kid may not be able to do the same assignment that you want all of the other kids have. So you have to have backup resources for the kids, that way they can operate on their own level.
Right, and then like you just said, other activities that in case they get off track, you can take them out and have them take a deep breath and then come back when they're ready to come back. Okay, so as superintendent, can you explain to our viewers how you oversee and make sure each student is receiving the appropriate curriculum? Are you checking with each school district and lining up your curriculum to that school district's, or are you doing the best that you can to match curriculum?
As each student is referred to us, there's an interview process to make sure that the needs are identified. We always connect with the home school district, usually the special ed director, to make sure that we know exactly what coursework is required. Our secretary collects all of that information, and we make a main copy for each of us, and each individual teacher receives the required coursework that student is to be completed. So we're always on top of making sure that what we're teaching is meeting the needs not only of the student, but also of the school district.
Of the school district. So you're, in a sense, doing individual learning plans for every student that matches up to that school district. So every time somebody comes in from somewhere else.
And then add to that how students learn. They learn in a variety of ways.
Absolutely.
Tactile, So you have to make sure that that instructor is addressing what is the best learning process for that student, but also meeting the academic needs at the same time.
Wow, that's a lot. So, and Andrew, we know that the students in your school can be a little bit more challenging than in a traditional school. So when a student might have an emotional outburst, I know you said that there are activities that you can do to kind of coach them through that. Is there anything you can share with us that might differ from how a traditional school might work with the student?
Yeah. So in a typical standard school, we know consequences: go to the office, get a detention, get a referral.
Right.
That kind of doesn't really happen here. So when we have a kid who is struggling in a classroom, we kind of want to get to the root problem of why they're struggling. So if a kid has some sort of emotional outburst in the classroom, we will first have someone who has the best relationship with that kid first enter into the conversation with them. Once that happens, then there is a process that student goes through. For example, let's say they threw somebody's whatever across the classroom. They have to make an apology to that student because they did something to that student that wasn't okay. But first, you don't just say, hey, you owe this person an apology.
Right.
That's not going to...
No, that's not going to fly. You need to get to the root of whatever caused the behavior in the first place.
Yeah. That's why we usually would have the kid leave the room. They would maybe do an activity with somebody, and they would go through what's known as the remediation process, where they have to identify what zone they were in, whether they were angry red, tired blue, kind of anxious yellow, or green. They were pretty calm. Just let them know, hey, what zone are you in? Why'd you feel that way? Why did you do what you did? And then you have to ask them essentially like, what can you do to make it better? Because when they leave the situation, they're trying to figure out why they did what they did, what they can do to make it better. And then when they come back into the room, the big question they need to ask is, what can I do to make it better?
Now, do they come up with a solution themselves that I really need to apologize to this student, or do you have to kind of prompt them in that direction to get to that apology?
It'll depend on the kid. It really will.
I mean, I assume if they've done it more than once, they know at the end that this is the right behavior to take. But are there instances where you're going to have to get parents involved? And
there have been times.
We have meetings with parents. Certainly with the IEPs that we cover, we have those individual meetings. But if there's an issue that continues to develop and continues on, we make a call out to the home. We have a private phone that we can text those parents. Parents like to be texted texted because they're working.
Right.
But they are kept informed if there's an issue. If it continues, then we ask that we have some type of an appointment with them so that we can talk that over. And usually we involve the student with it at
Right.
conference as well.
That's very similar. What I'm hearing to restorative practices. A lot of what you do seems to integrate that into your systems
Sure.
at the school, which I think for students is a great learning tool because you go through each step, like you had said. Why did this happen? Well, let's get you outside of here. Why did this happen? Let's talk this through, and then how can we make it better? Because I'm sure that, you know, everybody wants to, at the end of the day, leave happy and fulfilled and
Sure.
right and accomplished. So, and I understand for the past 2 years, the day treatment classrooms have been undergoing some renovations through funding by the Canton City Community Development Block Grant. Mike, can you tell our viewers what's taking place over there?
Each of the interior rooms have been remodeled with new cabinets. We also went with whiteboards. We've had chalkboards in the past. New flooring. Portion of it is linoleum, another portion of it is carpeting that allows them to have different stations in different places. So we're constantly working to make sure that it's an appealing place for students to come to. They feel at home, which many of them do after they've been there a while. They sometimes don't want to leave us.
They don't want to leave, right? They don't want to go back to wherever
Right.
because this is so much better.
It
And
is.
with being so
It's a
small,
safe place for them.
Right, being so small and safe. And I was just thinking that, you know, like you said, the carpeted area, the linoleum floor. This is not a traditional classroom where you're walking in and there's tables and chairs or just desks lined up, and
It can be moved around at any time.
at any time. So why don't you, either one of you can describe to our viewers what a typical day or week might look like for a student in terms of the classes and activities, because I know it's not going to look like what it looks like anywhere else.
Yeah, so kids usually arrive around 8-ish, and when they get here, we try not to have them do any sort of assignments early morning because something could have happened at home. They could be going through something. They could be fighting with each other, texting each other. Social media could be happening. So we really want the morning to be dedicated to just come in. How was your night? Are you good? Get some food, get some water, just to casually
Kind
get
of
to
a
know each other.
relaxing
A little, yeah.
time in the morning. About how long does that take place?
It could take like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It just depends on what happened that night with that kid.
And I'm assuming you can kind of read the student as they're walking in the building. You guys know them well enough to know, you know, so-and-so isn't having quite the
Best.
great morning that we would wish for this child to have. So we're going to try to start it off a little bit better than maybe what.
Yeah, and there are some kids that have a routine where they come in every day feeling that way. So we try to make a plan where they can go with their favorite staff, talk about their night, get it out of their system, and then enter the classroom as prepared as they can be. So once that morning's over, then they start on the academics. About halfway through the day, the therapist then enters, and the therapist begins doing group therapy with everybody. So they could do essentially like a check-in where they talk about how their night was, what zone they are in. They kind of go through and build social skills, how to interact appropriately with each other. And then during group, they also have gym. So all the kids go down to the gymnasium, kind of to simulate a standard school where you go to gym, then come back upstairs, eat your lunch, and then towards the end of the day, once your academics are done, it's kind of a time where they just relax. If all their assignments are done, if not, then they work on it, and then at the end, they can play games with each other, do some Uno kind of a thing, just until their bus arrives to go home.
Right. Well, that sounds, yeah, I wouldn't want to leave there either. I mean,
very
right.
fun, yeah.
It sounds really great. So, that being said, can you, Andrew, give our viewers some of the success stories that you've had with students, and by that, maybe enlighten us on what a student typically looks like when they initially come to the school, and then when they're what they look like when they're transitioning back to their district school.
Yeah, can't give names, but we have had a student, yeah, privacy, but we have had a student come in, and when she first started, she was kind of quiet, timid, kept to herself, kind of internalized all of her problems, and then they would explode in other places in her life, whether it's at home, school, wherever she's at. Slowly over time, though, she started building the skills, and she started actually raising her hand and asking me questions. She started to open up about what's going on.
So you were her teacher at this
Oh, yes.
time?
I was her teacher at this time. And over time, in the course of, I believe it was just 1 year, she actually was able to then go back and start doing track. She was able to then use that time over there to develop even more social skills with all the people that she's around there. And by the end of the year, she was able to successfully transition back into her home school district. And
has she been back
oh,
in
yeah,
her...
she's been doing great.
So you had her for one whole school year.
One whole school
which
year.
Which I think, I mean, if you think about it, I almost think the whole year would be a great...
It's hard to learn the skills in a short
period of time, and then go back here, and then your old behaviors start to pop back up because it's the environment that you're in, and a lot of times the people that you're surrounded by, and by that I mean maybe the other students that bring out some bad behaviors in you.
Yep.
So I would imagine if they are a short time, do these kids end up coming back?
They can.
They can.
We've had a couple come back. I think one student that stands out for me in terms of change is when this student came into the classroom, he was very frustrated, tore the classroom apart. We always remove the other students to our library so that we can deal with that individual case. And the reason he was frustrated was he wanted to be able to write out the alphabet. And he had a laminated copy and a piece of paper, and he kept pointing to it. And I got on the floor with him and said, "Do you want to write the alphabet?" And he shook his head yes. So we went through that. But I questioned, could you help us clean up the room after we do the alphabet? And he said yes. Now we don't have those issues with that child. He's still there, and he's growing as a student. And that's one of the success stories that you see, because sometimes they're so frustrated with what they're doing that they lose concept of how to do it.
Right, or how to react to, this is what I want to do, and I'm not allowed to do it.
Right.
And do you know why he wasn't actually telling you that this is what I want to do?
It was just something that triggered his frustration. But we got the room cleaned up afterwards, invited the rest of the class in, and it was a good day.
Right, and then the behavior doesn't happen anymore.
Doesn't happen.
Right?
Well, when it happens.
Well, I mean, but
perfectly.
right. In a perfect world,
Hopefully
there would never be any bad behavior. But you know, we know that that's not the case. So I know, Mike, at the end of the school year, students do state testing. Does CNA keep those results, or do the results of the tests go back to their
We receive
district?
track records on individual students from individual school districts that allow us to plug them into our computers to take those tests. Some have more than others that they are required to take based on their age. But we don't really get the results unless we would request them from the district that might in some way influence what we're doing academically with the student. But we actually submit the tests to the state through our computer system that's been allowed by each individual school district, giving us the necessary requirements to log in.
I mean, the students are taking them
They're taking
at your
them,
building. They're not
yes.
going back here and
No,
taking it.
it's
So
done in-house, and we usually do it on an individual basis. One thing that we really worked on this year was having those students who seem to get along best with either their instructor or BI would be able to sit in on that test. It creates less frustration for the student. Not many of them are interested in taking a test.
Well, nobody wants to be tested
does.
ever
Nobody
at any
does.
age. I don't care what it is.
Right.
It's just that word test. It's like a bad four-letter word,
So
right?
comfort level's important when you bring them into a room
Right.
to take that test, and we try to provide a connection with the students so that they feel comfortable and it's not such a hassle to have to take the test.
Right, and don't put so much pressure on you're getting a test
Right.
and you have to
Just do your best.
Yeah, do your best, and you know it's all good. So I know, Mike, that the school's been trying to find ways to integrate field trips into the school calendar for more typical school experience. So can you explain some of the field trips the students have taken and why this is important for their educational experience?
We're limited in the number because of the cost factor, but in the past they've gone to baseball games. They've gone to the Chargers. They've gone to Sippo Lake. We've had a couple of trips to Sippo Lake. We provide some fishing opportunities for the younger kids who really enjoy that. They're really into seeing the animals and wildlife that's there and taking the trails. This year, though, we'll talk a little bit about the art project that we have coming up. I think that's going to make a big difference because we'll be able to use some of our local areas here in Canton
Right.
within walking distance
Oh,
that will be
okay.
able to use that. So we'll discuss that.
Right now, and I think that's what we're getting to next, that you guys just received an Arts and Stark grant to do a collaborative project with artist Jonathan Becker. So can you tell us, how does this type of art activity enrich the student's school experience?
Yeah, so coming from someone who taught, I think, like 1 or 2 years before COVID, it was very hard to get some activities going because
Right.
everything was shut down. And now that I'm seeing all these places open up and allow things to flow again, it's so amazing to be able to reach out to some person and they just have this 10-week project. Jonathan Becker, he has a 10-week long project he's going to do with the kids where he's going to come in, he's going to build just these masks with the students where the outside of it is going to be who they portray themselves as. The
Oh.
inside is going to be who they actually are on the inside of who they actually are.
Now, what age group? Or
It's going to be about middle school, high school. We're going to see if our elementary kids can handle it, but it seems to be a little more like higher
It's
level.
a little advanced because I'm not sure. Younger kids may not get the concept of inside, outside. They're like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Right?
It involves movement, it
Right.
involves art projects. What's really nice is we'll be within walking distance of the First Lady's Library. We can go to the Palace Theater. We might even be able to arrange a Hall of Fame trip where these kids have never had that opportunity in the
Right.
past. So the more we get out there in terms of seeing what's available just within our local area, that's very helpful to kids, and it keeps their focus on what it is that relates back to the art project that we're going to plan.
Right. So once these masks are done, will they be displayed somewhere, or have you not got that far yet?
We have a plan of
have a
like
plan of that.
kind of like a show. We're
A little
thinking maybe
show.
have like the kids do their own for the staff that works with them kind of a thing because
Okay.
of like just privacy reasons.
Right,
but
right,
we think
right.
it'll be a pretty cool experience for them.
Okay, and Andrew, last year we discussed how students who came to the agency over the summer worked on making picnic tables. From a teacher's perspective, how nice was it to be able to take the kids outside to learn instead of being in a classroom all day?
It was a breath of fresh air. It was amazing. Going from just sitting in a room all day doing like pencil, paper, like you're kind of limited in the room that you're kind
Right.
of given that you can only have 8 students in the classroom, they're all a set size, you have all the desks, you're limited in space, whereas being able to go outside and there's just so many different things they can do. They can test the water, they can go outside and they can test the different plants. There's a garden that we're starting outside where they're growing all these different things and they can do experiments with those. It's, from a teacher's perspective, it's a whole new world of opportunities that you can use.
So it's almost full service inside and out. So have you kept, now I said summer when you did the picnic tables, but is this year-round, weather permitting, obviously, to go out with the garden or to test the waters or whatever else opportunity might be out there?
It honestly just depends on the weather because
Right.
we are really encouraging the staff to give the students the opportunities to prove that they can both handle being outside, because some students can't handle it.
Right,
But
right,
we do
right.
still want to give the students the opportunities to prove that I can handle going outside, I can do this project, I can do all of these things. And we really want to focus on making sure that the kids are getting an experience here that they aren't already going to have in a standard public school. We want them to have more chances to experience different things.
And all grade levels are able to
yes.
experience this? Wonderful.
We have a little mini playground out by our bus garage where the younger kids usually like to end their days just going outside if it's not raining or it's not wintertime.
Nice. So, Mike, what is the success rate of this one-of-a-kind program?
That's a good question because it's so individualized.
Right.
But I would say
Right.
we're between 90 and 95% success rate.
Okay.
A student who is maybe there for half a year can be very quickly successful because they gained or gleaned the importance of the tools that they're provided. Another student, though, who may take up to 2 years, it just depends on the individual student because there's such individual needs for these kids.
And I would imagine success looks different on everybody,
It does.
right? So how do you
It does.
gauge what I deem is a success for you is different for you and is different for me. So, and the time frame to get from A to Z is going to be different for everybody as well. But 95, I mean, that's fantastic.
To see a student who maybe was frustrated and on their own comes to say, hey, I have to apologize for what I did, and you get that relationship building, We have that with a lot of our students. And like I said, sometimes they don't want to leave because they feel they're protected there. It's a safe place for them, and they're understood. And we're trying to give them the tools to help them get out of that rut that they've been in for a long time, to be able to make the change in their life and get back to the regular school setting. That's our goal.
Now, have you all ever heard from a student that has left the program, gone back to their school, and then maybe come back to just, thank you so much for everything you did for me because I became a completely different student once I transitioned back?
We've had success stories like that. Personally, I have not yet, but given the staff that have been there for many
Right.
years, they have they usually at the start of training week, when all the new staff come in, they do give those success stories. That way other staff hear it and they're just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing.
Right.
But we do have those students that come back and they let us know, hey, I got a job, hey, I graduated from drag, I got a job doing whatever, or I joined the military. They come back and they do let us know.
Right. I mean, it just makes it all worthwhile, that much all
Absolutely.
worthwhile, knowing that what you're doing has
Sure.
changed the lives of these students. I mean, like, you guys are just doing fantastic work and programming at CNA. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap this up?
You can go first.
Mental health is an issue today in such a strong way, and not everyone understands what a child is going through as they're growing up, facing the trauma that they have had in their life. Having the ability to work one-on-one with a student that you don't necessarily have in a public school setting with so many students, this gives an opportunity of escape from that for a child to be able to say, hey, I learned these skills, look back on them, rely on them, utilize them, and become a success in whatever it is they want to do. We have kids who have gone into the welding program at Drag, and now they're successful. And one of the things we say is, remember, when you get frustrated, rely on those tools you've been given here. Don't worry about what other people think. Make sure that your goal is being met, and you're going to make it. And the majority do after they've been through this program.
Right. And I heard you both use the words, what zone you're in. I think everybody should
all
have
have our
this
zones.
They should,
sheet,
yeah.
this cheat sheet of zones, and I want to know throughout the day, what zone am I in, because maybe I can correct why am I here and change my zone from, I guess red is the critical zone,
Angry, you're upset,
and I don't
yeah.
know, is blue the happy zone?
Who's more tired, you're kind of depressed, sad,
Okay.
that kind of a thing.
What's
We
your
always link
happy
it back
zone?
to the Inside Out movie. We always link it back to that
Okay.
kind of a thing.
Okay, right. But I mean, literally, everybody should have that.
Yeah.
Right? So, you want to go? Up?
Sure. I think the most important piece for both our program and anybody else that is working with children, it's all about the relational approach you take. You have to build a relationship with every single kid you work
Absolutely.
with, or they're not going to care at all. I have a kid who, when he first started in the program, he apparently did no work whatsoever. He was fighting teachers. He was a mess.
That was at his home
School district, yeah.
Home
Then he came
school
over to here, and on the first day, I just said, do you want to go play Uno? And from that day, you know who I'm talking about, from that day, he has been doing all of his assignments. He has his struggles still.
Sure.
If he misses a day of playing Uno with me, for example, he gets very frustrated. But every day, we'll go into the hallway, and he'll hear Mike in the background, and he'll say, Mr. Mike, Andrew's cheating. And I'm like, no, he isn't. But truly, it's the relational approach that you take. You have to build a relationship with the kid,
Sure.
or they're not going to care.
Right, and it's also trust.
It is.
I mean, just you reaching out in that way, he felt safe. And that's another
Right.
word that kids need to feel safe regardless of where they are. And I think that you guys do a more than adequate job.
I want to
of
give a
bringing
shout
that
out to
in.
our staff too. Our
Oh,
VIs,
absolutely.
our therapists, our instructors. It's a full support
Right.
of one another, because it
Oh,
can be
right.
tense at times.
Sure.
But we're always watching each other's back to make sure that we're working together for what is the best interest
Well,
of the
you know,
student.
they say it takes a village. So
It
you're a
does.
team
It
that
does.
working together to bring these successes, you know, every day, every week, every month, every year.
Sure.
Right? Right.
yeah.
Wonderful. So thank you all for the information and all these resources. For more information on this topic and so much more, you can visit the CNA website, www.childandadolescent.org, or you can call the CNA office at 330-433-6075. Thanks to Dan Mucci, Mission Advancement Director, for helping to coordinate this episode and future episodes in this partnership. As for the TV11 staff, we will continue to bring you an inside look at the district each week during the regular school year, in addition to this series of shows on mental health and wellness. If you are a staff member and would like to have a feature story on our program, please email Robin Matalich at matalich_r@ccsdistrict.org. We would love to have you in the studio to showcase the valuable experiences our kids have here at the Canton City School District and the supports we have in place to educate the whole child. Please visit our website at ccstv11.com, where you can get information on all of our shows and watch us on your favorite device. Your health is your wealth. See you next time.